Well, good day, everybody, and welcome to this week's episode of the Gator Wesley Bios. Today on the show we have Brad. Thank you for coming.
Thanks, JC, for having me.
Oh, no problem. All right, so let's go ahead and start by having you tell us a little bit about yourself.
Hey, so I'm originally from Phoenix, Arizona, born and raised, lived there until I was 18, and then randomly I moved to college, and then I went to a small school in North Carolina called Pfeiffer University. Had about 500 students there, and it was literally in the middle of nowhere. We had a stop sign and a stoplight, and that was about it. And then from there, after I graduated, I actually became a United Methodist missionary, and I worked for the General Board of Global Ministries and became a missionary in Brazil. And then after that assignment was over, I'm out here with Gator Wesley. So I'm excited to be here.
And we're very glad to have you. So let's go ahead and back up a little bit and have you tell us a little bit about Arizona and going up there.
Okay. So, I mean, first thing everybody will tell you, it's really hot, and it is. But it's a dry heat, and that's the same thing that everybody always tells you if they're from Arizona or the West Coast. They say it's a dry heat. So that means no humidity, which is fantastic, and I prefer it that way. I had a lot of fun in the city growing up, and then every summer I would go to Mingus Mountain, which is the camp. It's kind of like Warren Willis out here, but it's in the middle of the mountains, and it's green and beautiful, and that's kind of what I did most of the time. When I got a chance, I'd go up to camp and worked at camp, and I did camp forever, and yeah.
So can you tell us a little bit about your family and growing up with them? Do you have any brothers or sisters? Or?
Yeah, so I have one sister, but I don't really know my family as well as most people do, but that's okay. I mean, they're around, but I don't necessarily see eye to eye with them, so I usually see them on Christmas sometimes.
So can you tell us a little about your early education in Arizona, elementary, middle school, high school, and all that good jazz?
Yeah. So I moved around a lot as a kid, and I ended up going to 18 different schools as a kid, from elementary school to high school. And I was moving all the time, but I was always at public schools, and then in those 18 schools, I ended up going to 3 different high schools, and I just kind of always jumped around. So I always just kind of had one solid core of friends, but my solid core of friends were always from church and not necessarily from school. So that's part of it. That's also why I kept going to camp. It's because of them.
So you mentioned that you grew attached more to your church family. Can you tell us a little about that?
Yeah, no problem. So I grew up in the United Methodist Church, kind of a physically large building, but very few people going to it, in a small church downtown Phoenix called Christ Church UMC in downtown Phoenix, like I said. And then eventually, middle school, our church got flooded from a big storm in Arizona, and we had to merge with another church in Avondale. And that was a huge change for me, because it went from having 3 people that I was with all the time to about my age, that's what I should say that, to a large group of like 20 or 30 young adults and, youth hanging out. And it was a lot of fun learning together, and we'd always do conferences, and we'd always come together, and just being active in church kind of led me to where I was going and who I am today, really. But always just kind of being involved with the church. And these people are still like my family, and I talk to them all the time.
Now, backing up a little bit, in high school, did you do any kind of extracurricular activity?
Kind of. I did yearbook at one of the schools, and then I did theater. I try to do theater at all 3 schools. I'm actually an international thespian, which means that an international thespian is kind of the people who do acting and who do technical work. And I did acting at my first school, but my other 2 schools, I just didn't feel comfortable being on stage, so I actually went behind the scenes and did a lot with theater behind the scenes, did a lot of grunt work and grip. I did the lights for some of the shows, but mostly I just like being the grip, getting it in, getting it out, and getting the show on the road.
And a very important task indeed. And you said you were part of the International Thespians, and were there any particular moments or particular shows that you were involved in that would be memorable or your most interesting?
Favorite show that I've ever been a part of, I was actually an actor, and I'm not sure that that's the reason why I liked it, but my favorite show that I've ever been a part of was called 11 Variations of Friar John's Failure, and it was Friar John from the story of Romeo and Juliet, and it basically goes through 11 different reasons why he screwed up getting Juliet. And so he would go through the scene, and it was a comedy, obviously, and so he would go through the scene, and then he'd screw up, and then this omniscient voice would be like, "Hey, Friar John, you screwed up," and this omniscient voice would rewind the whole scene, and so you'd have to do the scene backwards. So you'd have to do the whole scene, and then you have to do the whole scene again backwards in like double takes. So you're running backwards and stuff, and then the omniscient character would pick him up and plop him into their story. And so Friar John went from the normal Juliet story to Tom Sawyer to the Scottish play to a bunch of just random 11 ways that he screwed up. So it was really fun. So the funnest part was just running backwards, doing the whole scene and then running it backwards. And I was, during that time, I was Macbeth for one of those plays. Knock on wood, I don't want to break a leg. And then it was, then I did, I was Lord Capulet as well. So it was interesting kind of getting these two stories kind of putting together, and all these, 11 stories put into one, and it was fun.
You also mentioned after high school you decided to move to North Carolina for college, correct?
Yeah.
And what was the name of that college again?
Pfeiffer University.
And can you tell us a little bit about Pfeiffer?
Okay, so Pfeiffer is a small United Methodist college. It was started by the United Methodist Women's in like the 1880s. It was really awesome. And then from there, they just kind of kept moving around, but they ended up in Meisenheimer, North Carolina. If you've ever heard of it, most people haven't. That's okay. It's basically 45 minutes northeast of Charlotte, and it is literally out in the woods. So that's it. Then the school, I went there for religion education, so I went for a youth ministry degree with minor in Christian education. And for those who don't know what that means, I just say it's religion. So I got a religion major from there.
How involved were you when you were at Pfeiffer?
Oh, I was really involved. Basically, from my freshman year on, I was helping out with this group called, several groups, but the one that I'm most proud of is called Pfeiffer Frenzy. It's kind of a support group of athletics at Pfeiffer. We didn't really have a mascot at the university until I got involved, and then we physically got a mascot, kind of like Albert. His name was Freddie the Falcon, and I was actually Freddie the Falcon. So I was the first Freddie the Falcon in like 20 years they had at Pfeiffer. So that was a lot of fun running around doing that, being the bird. I was also part of residential staff as an RA, and I was also a chaplain. I led part of the time I did a little bit with CEF, which is Christian Education Fellowship. I also helped out with our Frisbee team, Humans versus Zombies. I was always running around. I also worked at the library, surprisingly enough. I also worked in the advancement office, which is kind of like admissions for a while as well. I did a bunch.
As being so academically involved as a student, what would you say would be one of your pivotal moments at Pfeiffer?
Okay, there's quite a few. I think my freshman year, I had really, really long hair, like past my shoulders, so that was fun. But it was mostly that the older students in the religion department were like, okay, he's weird, but we're going to let him in, we're going to let him hang out with us. So it was kind of saying that I was accepted for who I was, and that was kind of pivotal for me because it was kind of cool to feel accepted in this place that I've never been before. And then being able to work on residential staff and working to get the frenzy thing going, so that was really awesome. I think my favorite times were actually senior year, and I think everybody says that. But I was able to get some of my favorite classes I've ever had were during senior year, and just kind of being able to work on projects that I chose instead of actually choosing. Instead of being chose for me, I was allowed to pick the classes I want, the themes that I wanted for those classes. And so it was kind of a mix of all the years. I can't really pick one pivotal moment as like, that's the moment, but it was kind of like a capstone of college. I wouldn't be who I am today without Pfeiffer. So
very nice. And so you did graduate Pfeiffer with a degree in religion and religion education, correct?
Yeah. So youth ministry is what it was officially called, but yes, it's a religion degree.
All right. And you decided after that to go into the missionary program with the United Methodist Church, correct?
Yes.
And what does that mean, and what have you done with that?
Okay, yeah. So it was my senior year in college, and one of my professors came up to me and said, "Brad, I think you'd be really good at this program." And I was like, "I don't know what you're talking about, Dr. Phil." That's what I called him. He's not Dr. Phil. I'm not like the guy on Oprah or whatever. His name's Dr. Phil Wingai-Arayo, and I'm just really informal, so I called him Dr. Phil. I'm not sure how he felt about that, but I did anyways. But he said, "I think you'd be really good at this program." I did this program when I was your age in the 80s, and so he kind of said, "Hey, Brad, check this out. Go this way." And so I filled out this application, and it was for this program called the Mission Internship with General Board of Global Ministries for Young Adults. Since the name has changed, and so it's now called Global Mission Fellow, and so that's what I am. I'm a Global Mission Fellow. And so what it entails is it's now 2 year. It's a 2-year program, and it is you sign up for 20 months abroad, and then 4 months in the United States doing itineration. And itineration means that you're traveling around, talking about who you are, and where you came from, and where you stayed, and kind of raise money for this program. But when I went in through, it was a 3-year program, and it was a 1.5 years out of country, then a 1.5 years in country. And so my placement was actually originally in Belo Horizonte, Brazil. And I was working with a small after-school organization. I guess it's not really small anymore because there's like 3,000 locations of it throughout the whole country, but it was small. It was small. So there. And now I'm here with Gator Wesley on my second half of the assignment, and I'm excited, like I said.
And we're glad to have you. If we can back up just a little bit and have you tell us a little bit more about Brazil as well.
Yeah. What do you want to know about Brazil? That's a big country and a big...
Well, it is indeed. Your experience, and you said you did a little bit of mission work there, or that was your first assignment, correct?
Yeah.
So can you tell us a little bit what you were involved in and what you did, basically?
Yeah, so I was working with an organization called Zombie Agua Fresca, which in English is Shade and Fresh Water. And when I tell most people that, they think I was like digging wells for people, but I wasn't doing that at all. I was actually working in an after-school program with little kids from 6 to 14, Monday through Sunday, really. We were supposed to have Saturday and Sundays off, but that didn't really happen because it's Brazil. And if you're living in a community, you're with everyone. So it was a lot of fun. So like even if I just wanted to go to like the grocery store and get food really quick and just go and get it done, my community members are like, "Hey, no, we're going to go with you." And not because they were scared that I was going to get hurt. It's just that's the way that they did things in Brazil. They did everything community. So it was really cool getting that experience of so much community and so much love. And just like when someone was hurting, the whole community was affected. And then they all did something to like fix that, to make it better for that one person, but it also made the whole community better as well. So I was working, like I said, with this organization, and I was predominantly doing recreation classes for these children. And I was doing that because they get 4 hours to school each day, and it's really only reading, writing, and arithmetic, history, and no chances to be active. And I was trying to teach them or help them with their hand-eye coordination because they had really good hand-foot coordination because of soccer, known for soccer. And so I was trying to work on their hand-eye coordination and just kind of other sports and other ways for them to get active. I'd also teach them English classes. And when it was their summertime, it's winter for us and up here in North America, I would also go kind of travel around Brazil. And I'd go to conferences and talk about who I was and translate for a lot of American doctors and groups. So that was a lot of fun doing that, but then also getting to travel to the beaches and stuff and kind of understanding in this new culture and this new way of life. That was probably my favorite part.
And so after that, you were reassigned back to the United States, correct?
Yeah.
And specifically here at the Gator Wesley Foundation.
Yeah.
So can you tell us a little bit about how that happened and what you're doing now here at Gator Wesley?
Yeah, I was in Brazil at that point when I got my assignment, and it was for, actually it wasn't Gator Wesley. My first assignment was somewhere in Wisconsin, and I was like, I'm not about that life. I don't want to freeze. I'm living in Brazil. I don't want cold weather. And I really wanted to work with college students. It was kind of like what I felt my calling is and was, and so it was, I kind of fought for this position, and thankfully Narcy applied for me to be here, and I'm here. What I'm doing is I'm doing a lot of like behind the scenes work. I try to do podcasts that we have, posted videos. I try to kind of talk with students, kind of convince them that this time in their life matters. I guess not convinced, but talking with them that this time in their life matters and that they can do something with their faith, and it's really important for them to understand that their faith isn't something that they do on Sundays, but it's something that you do every day, and you should live that out. And it's a lot of fun, a lot of Mario Kart.
So now being here, what does Gator Wesley mean to you?
Yeah, so it's a great place that I'm getting a lot of practical applications working in college ministry, and a lot of application and practice for when I grow up, quotation mark, grow up. So I'm giving some sermons on Sundays. I am running tech booths sometimes, not always, because we have a great tech team here. It's really just like practical application learning from Narcy, who's one of the best in college ministries. Working with the students here, it's a great experience. A lot of learning. It's a lot of learning, and that's what I'm thankful for. And that's what I'm most appreciative about. It's a lot of learning and a lot of area and a lot of room for me to make mistakes, but also learn from them. So that's what I'm excited about.
And now, where do you see Gator Wesley going in the future?
Where do I see Gator Wesley going into the future? Well, I hope the great things are happening here at Gator Wesley, and that we continue to grow and continue to reach out to Santa Fe College and reach out to basically anybody who needs a Christian community on campus, both campuses, really.
All right, well, we're getting to the end of our show, and I want to thank you again for coming on.
Yeah.
And in the last few moments, is there anything you would like to tell people that they should know or should already know about you?
One of my favorite things, it's not necessarily about me, but one of my favorite experiences was when I was in Brazil. I was translating for this doctor when I was up in the Amazon River, and he was she was really scared about going into the water because she was afraid that she would get eaten by piranhas. But that doesn't happen. We're both okay. But it was kind of pushing her into the river, the Amazon River. That was one of my favorite experiences. But then also, when I met this village, they've seen white people before, but it's not like something they see all the time. And I tried to teach them how to do an American handshake, and it wasn't right, obviously, because it's me. And so I taught them that when they shook their hands, they shake it so obnoxiously large that you can see their arm jiggle. And so these kids are learning how to shake hands. I was like, no, you're not doing it right. Now. Isu, this is how you do it. And I taught them that I would shake their hands and their whole arms would jiggle. And then one of the kids, his dad was kind of like the chief of this town. And the kid runs up to his dad and goes, let me teach you how Americans shake their hands. And I was like, oh God, this is not going to be great. And so the little kid runs up to his dad and starts shaking his hand violently. And the dad's just like, maybe, I don't think that's right. And then at the end of the close, after we were done, like with that village, the chieftain comes up to me and goes, okay. And he just starts shaking my hand crazy. Like I shouldn't have taught these kids because this is going to be stuck in their head forever. But that was some of my favorite memories, was just up in the Amazon River and about teaching these kids how to shake hands that I probably shouldn't have, but now it's going to be stuck that way forever. Yeah.
All right, well, we want to thank you again for coming on the show.
Yeah, man, no problem.
And this has been the Gator Wesley Bios, produced by James Jordan and produced on location at the Gator Wesley Foundation, which is a campus ministry of the United Church that services the University of Florida and Santa Fe College. Tune in next time when we have more stories, more people, and more Gator Wesley Bios. Thank you, and